Hello, everybody. Mariner here, and welcome to Net That Hall. And yes, I do know how to steer the ship, Gabe, unlike somebody.
That's me.
I heard a little rumor.
You should hear it in the pod. On the podcast, it's the best.
How are you doing anyway? I'm sorry I couldn't be with you last night, but I was absolutely exhausted from a long day down across the other side of the UAE. So yeah, everything all right your way?
Yeah, everything's going pretty well on this end. Had a great show yesterday with Lucien. I forgive myself the crashing the ship into the harbor because we ended up keeping it under an hour. So I think that feat is more important than the launch.
Nothing wrong with that. As long as you keep it under that 1 hour, that's the critical thing, isn't it? And so we'll have to try and keep this critical as well. Let's see how we do with this tonight as well, because I think there's some football, which I think we might all want to watch later on. But so anyway, shall we dive in and let's crack on rather than worrying about what happened last week? Let's start thinking about what's going to happen this week. Well, first, we need to have a look at the philosophy of the week. My FPL rank means that I probably need a Swiss psychiatrist. You've actually got one.
I've actually brought one today for show and tell. Every week before we get going with things, it's always good to take a pause. You know, we all know Maradona's famous La Pausa. This is La Pausa right here to create a little space for what's to come. Philosophy of the week for Gameweek 8 comes from Carl Jung. He said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." Mariner, can you think of a time where you have felt oppressive condemnation for something regarding FPL?
Probably every week.
Every week? That's absolutely right.
Maybe even every day.
About the same
Actually,
week,
no.
every day, yeah.
Actually, no. Every match, every VAR decision, condemnation does not liberate; it oppresses. I'll tell you what, it liberated me listening to that ass make a complete pig's ear of blooming decisions on the pitch again. I know it didn't really affect me FPL wise because I thought I'm not, owner wise. It didn't affect me, but I can see why people might be condemning people, and perhaps it might feel rather liberating to do it. I'm not quite sure I agree with this.
This is so this is in relation to FPL. You can sit there and rant about your team and rant about the variance and complain about this, that, and the other, and you're doomed to repeat those same patterns if that's how you choose to engage with it. If you accept the variance, if you accept that you won't always be right, if you accept that you will mostly be wrong, then you are free. That's how you are truly free. Otherwise, you are in the shackles of condemnation.
So you're basically saying just embrace the disasters.
Embrace the disasters. It truly is fine, Mariner. It truly is fine.
I can't.
Now let's go on. Now let's get the show going.
Psychiatrist right now. Get me that Swiss psychiatrist right now. I mean, look, between me and you, and probably a good job I didn't do the review show. I'd have been talking even more crap than usual because I never watched a single game last weekend. I didn't watch a match. I have not watched a minute of football because I was too busy watching the Ryder Cup. Quite frankly. Far too busy watching the golf to worry about football this weekend. I did let a little thing. I did let a little. Yeah, I did let a little thing. Yeah, it's like Europe beat the USA. But anyway, there we go. Imagine you're not American, so that's fine. I know you live there, but you're not, are you?
I couldn't care less about golf, and I have no patriotism to this country. So.
It's about the only time I've got any patriotism towards Europe, but that's another story. Anyway, but no, and consequently, I also said that if I hadn't looked at the fixtures, I had to look the fixtures up tonight as well because I've not even looked who's playing who next week. My goodness. Anyway, enough of the pathetic, liberating excuses, which I need to keep getting in with my rank being so bad. matchups. Let's go, Gabe. We'll start with Luton against Spurs. Now, this is an interesting one because I was having a look at Luton's numbers at home, and they are by no means as bad as a lot of people, what you would actually think. They're actually not bad defensively or attacking-wise at home. I know they're not necessarily getting the results, but their numbers aren't bad. NetXG sort of like sees that. It does quite like Spurs at 1.87, doesn't it? But it also quite likes Luton at 1.51. My FDR, on the other hand, has Spurs quite a long way down in comparison, I think, to where you would normally expect to see a net XG of 1.87 with only a 1.4 fixture difficulty and a very slight positive for Luton at 0.3. Luton's left quite likes, not quite sure who's there, no idea. But the rest of it, really Spurs XG 1.7 matchup, big chances 2.7 matchup, and Luton's headers. They are creating chances from set pieces, which is probably one of the only ways that they might score, being honest with you. What's your view on this one? Let us know how you feel this is going to go, and give us a bit of your through the old lens, mate, as usual.
Yeah, so I think the lens is a little bit divided on this one because I think I agree. While I agree with you that Luton's, I dug into this one. I couldn't believe Luton had a net XG of 1.51 against Spurs. Even knowing how open Spurs have been, I thought that was quite high. So I dug into the metrics, and sure enough, part of it is Spurs' defense is being held back a little bit by last season, by some of last season's games. That will phase out in the next couple of game weeks between game week 8 and game week 12, kind of last season's data. I'll phase last season's data out, but I think it's being a little bit unfair to Spurs' defense here. By the same token, I do kind of expect Luton to get one at home. And Luton's numbers from a Luton concede. Let's see, what is it? They have. I wrote it down here somewhere that they concede so many goals. Oh, here we go. They've conceded 4 goals after the 85th minute in the 7 matches that they've played. I think that's a big deal. That's where like Luton's kind of defense really falls apart. But initially they show some resiliency. What I will say is that stat right there really kind of like has me second guessing a Son captaincy, and obviously we'll get to captaincy at the end with the metric, but I know it's on a lot of people's minds where Son has been Son has been subbed off prior to the 80th minute 5 times this season, and Luton have conceded 4 goals after the 85th minute. And that's
interesting. It does. I know what you mean. It's an odd one, that, isn't it? I also have a little niggling doubt about this one. I'm not quite sure who I would captain otherwise, but I have got this niggling doubt about this. I mean, I'll tell you why. Luton, big chances against at home, on average 1.3 per 90. Only 1.3. XG against only 0.9 per 90 at home. They are not necessarily. Now, again, I don't think they've played anyone. Who have they played at home? They've
only had Burnley. 2 games. It's a small sample size.
Three now.
Oh, it's 3.
It's 3 now.
Right.
But that's yeah, they've only played three games. Yes, it's a small sample size. Maybe they've not come up against Spurs, the new version of Spurs, or anything like it. So we have to think about that. But yeah, you make a decent point. I think Son's okay if he's on the pitch, but even then, how easy is it for him? It might be one of those weeks where you might need Maddison to unpick something. Perhaps, I'm not sure. And also, there is a bit of a niggling doubt about Son's fitness, isn't there? As well, he wasn't seen on the training pitch this week. There was some comments on it's not Twitter, on X or whatever the hell it is these days, saying, oh yeah, because they're managing perhaps an issue. And that again plays into the fact that Son might come off early. It's a little bit tricky, this captaincy, for them, I think.
Yeah, and if we're looking at this match for captaincy, I think Madison might edge it over Son just because of the minutes and the fact that Madison will play. Let's see, he's been subbed prior to the 80th minute twice this season. Other than that, it's 85th minute or later. So or full 90. So I think he might be the standout, especially since Luton tend to concede late. Black screen here with a fun comment in the chat. Refs have to give Luton the win after giving Spurs a win last week, and fair enough, right?
Yeah, balance it all out, right? I don't think that Darren England will be anywhere near a VAR screen anytime soon anyway, but that's another story. Madison's minutes on average 85.1 against 79.3. Their actual involvement and expected involvement are nearly exactly the same. Exactly the same, actually. Very... there is just a tiny bit, and there's very little, shall we say, very little under our overperformance there. So
you want to run through what you're looking at. It
does support Madison. Yeah, I mean, what I'm looking at here is this new player predictions I'm working on, and I'll explain it later because there's actually a slide actually showing all the players, but you'll see it anyway. But basically, this is based on their expected involvement and the expected matchup between XG. We are trying to predict the players' involvement in the next 5 game weeks. So what you're seeing there is that we think on the basis of this, Madison should get 2.42 returns and Son 2.19. Not necessarily that many, actually. And again, this is again point from the basis that actually Spurs' matchups in the next 5 weeks are not all that great either. But anyway, let's come back to this, I suggest.
We Will here in the chat says he heard rumors of nursing a groin injury.
It's the same rumor I've seen.
If it's a groin injury, that honestly, that what we were talking about before prior backstage is just getting a little more and more enticing as I'm getting more information here.
The trouble is, I own both Madison and Son. It was quite deliberate, and I really didn't know he was nursing an injury. I know he came off, but. It's a little bit frustrating. But anyway, there we go. It is what it is. It could be an interesting game. This might go down to the wire. It might go down to press conferences, trying to get a bit of understanding about what's going on. Is it the early game?
Yes.
Is it the first? Oh, God, it's Gandhi as well then. Oh my. Okay. Anyway, Colm's saying just to brighten our day up as well. The last 3 Luton Spurs games have finished 0-0. They were in the late 80s and early 90s, however. So most of the people who were watching this, Colm, weren't even born. I certainly was. I left school by the late 80s, but there we go. There's another story. That's the problem with being an old fart. Anyway, right. Next game then, Gabe. Let's keep going. Didn't Son also have an injury last season? Was it a groin last season? I think it might have been. It might have been a groin. I can't remember. I know he was definitely nursing something. They blamed that on the form, didn't they? But anyway, Burnley against Chelsea. Okay, so Chelsea finally get a win. Maybe save Poch's skin, perhaps. I'm not quite there. Who knows? But this week, away at Burnley, net XG, Chelsea slightly better, 1.59 against 1.21. Chelsea's fixture difficulty, on the other hand, is much better, 2.1 attack, 1.3 defence. And also, Burnley's left, Chelsea's centre, Chelsea's right. But saying that, the rest of the matchups, Gabe, are a little bit meh, if I'm honest with you. And I've got maybe there's a little bit on shot goal predictor for that for Chelsea at 26% for 2. But realistically, I'm not sure I see an awful lot of goals in this one, despite the fixture difficulty showing what it does. What's your perspective of this one?
Yeah, I think Burnley are starting out more compact than they were initially in the season, and well in it's we're looking at the position maps there, and this is obviously against Newcastle, which is a much better team than Chelsea, of course. So they will be perhaps a little bit deeper in that one. It's if Burnley are going to play that kind of compact midfield higher up the field, then maybe something could open up for Chelsea. I mean, there are so many other emerging assets in midfield and stuff that Chelsea assets are being sold in large part. I don't know if Sterling will even start in this game, but this is like Burnley, a team trying to get out of first gear, just trying to get in motion their passing patterns in play, and Chelsea, a team that can move the ball, that has been defensively like not terrible, right? But they just can't get into third gear. So it's whatever team can kind of like get into that extra gear, I think could have an advantage here. But I think it's I kind of agree with the stats that it's much closer than it really should be, in terms of a matchup, and therefore a little bit unpredictable for me.
Jackson's back. Is he going to have? Is his enforced rest going to have that desired effect to perhaps wake him out of his slumber? I mean, Ollie Watkins certainly stopped hitting the post last week. maybe Jackson's about to turn. He is still the by far the player with the most potential involvement for Chelsea. Thing is, I don't think many people own them anymore. I've sold Chilwell. I've still got Gusto. The only reason I can't get rid of him because I'm too busy putting out fires elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, I sold Jackson weeks ago now, or it feels like weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm sure not many people own Jackson, and there are too many obvious sells for these players, right? Like Sterling to Madison, for example, if you can get there. Jackson to Darwin, for example, for a game week, if you want to go there. So I don't know. I would imagine people have sold these players. And the one thing I'll say is if you're stuck maybe with Botman and Estupinian and like, so your defense is pretty threadbare. Like I'm starting Kabore. I'm gonna have to start Kabore this game week unless I do something drastic. And if you're stuck with like a Burnley defender, I think it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, there was just a mention about Lyle Foster in the chat. Whilst we're talking about Burnley, Lyle Foster's 5 million, right? If I was to just put this prediction program back up again, Gabe, you can see there that he sits top of Burnley with respect to involvement. But look at his expected against actual. Minus 0.28 per 90, right? So in other words, his actual involvement is 67%. His expected is only 39. So look, if his finishing is good, and he is, and this is by the fact that when he gets a chance, he sticks it away. He's sticking it away, and he's, shall we say, he's in great, he's in form, or he's been lucky, is two different things entirely. But if you were to take that and put that onto the next 5 game weeks, that puts him up to almost three returns in the next 5 game weeks. And that is for a 5 million player. He is not such a stupid pick, quite frankly. He's a player that I've thought about.
That's so a really interesting shout. I think. Well, let's clip this one because Lyle. I like the logic. The one thing
you see what I mean by it. You can't judge it. This is about the context, isn't it? You've got to decide whether the context is the fact that he's actually overperforming his expected goals because of the fact he's good, or is he lucky? And that's the point, or is it somewhere in between?
Hold on, but there's another. Those aren't the only two variables. It could be that everybody else is so shit that the expected for the others is really low on the actual, which makes his actual percentage higher?
Yeah, actually, let me just try and unfilter this a second and see whether it's goals or assists.
But to your point, like I
It's
don't
goals for him. Look, it's only goals. So
right.
he's very little assists there. Look,
Yeah.
do you see what I mean?
So
So
so I mean, to your point,
sorry.
yeah, yeah, no, I think this is really interesting as an academic experiment on like
Yes.
experimenting with our process, right? We're not going
Yeah.
to go in and bring Lyle Foster in most likely, but this will be an interesting experiment.
No, I don't think I would. I mean, at the end of the day, I think again there's other options. But I mean, if you're wildcarding, is a 5 million Lyle Foster worth it over a 4.5 million, 4.6 million Archer? He may well be.
Hmm. That
You know what I
extra
mean?
0.5, yeah, it could be worth it.
Maybe. Anyway, let's keep going. The answer is, but do you play him? There are games I think where you may play him. Yes, I think there possibly are. I think it's very much dependent on who your fifth midfielder is. That's
Mhm.
key with that.
Mhm.
Anyway, next one: Everton against Bournemouth. Dear God, poor Everton. Everton, my goodness me. Bournemouth, Everton at home, 1.46 XG, net XG against Bournemouth away 1.31. Everton's fixture difficulty is better, 2.4 against 0.4 defence. And yeah, Everton's right is favoured. Everton's headed chances is also favoured. In fact, it's a good matchup for headed chances this week. Is Tarkovsky fit? Maybe. I
Calvert-Lewin is
mean,
fit.
Calvert-Lewin's fit. Yeah, and guess what? Guess who? And I did mention him last. I did
Mhm.
diss him from the perspective of the fact I thought his leg would fall off again. But then actually on Twitter, I said, you know what? There's this little devil in me telling to think about bringing Calvert-Lewin in. And I think it was Connor. He said, Chris, don't. Just stop it, Chris.
Connor, the little angel.
just, just,
Good for
just
Connor.
stop it, Chris. Just stop it.
Thank you, Connor.
But he scored again. Yeah, but I mean, look, he's probably going to get injured again. But I mean, if he doesn't get injured, he is a very patchy player, isn't he? He gets into a run and he starts and he scores. And to be fair to him, he is very, very much like that. We've seen it before, haven't we? It goes long periods of blanking and then he comes good. Gabe, what's your perspective on this one, please?
Yeah, I mean, Everton are kind of living and dying by set pieces right now and crosses and stuff like that. So that's why that headed matchup is showing up there. And I haven't looked at Everton's fixtures, but I wouldn't be surprised if Calvert-Lewin starts being recognized at least, or being talked about and considered. Do you know what his price is?
Calvert-Lewin, he's back. I can soon tell you, because I've actually uploaded it tonight. So let me just check. He is 5.8.
Yeah. So I mean, 5.8 million. If you're looking at like that's a decent price point. I think for a player, but again, not looking here purely academic. From a tactical perspective. Oh wow, I have the I have the Everton slides swapped there. The one on the left is oh no, they're good. No, the one on the left is before the subs. The one on the right is after the subs. Look how spread open Everton became after the substitutions against Luton. Because they went down in that match and they had to make subs and be more open. So this idea of an Everton deep block, I think even when they come out, if you look at the average positions there, it's quite high up the field. Obviously they're playing Luton, so they will be high up the field. But you see the concentration on the left there, on the left side of their attack, and the space that's opened up on their right side, right? So, which means Bournemouth's left side could create something, even though it's not showing up there in the zonals. I think there could be something from Bournemouth's left.
The problem is Bournemouth don't create much away from home. This is the problem.
No, they don't.
Solanke is involved in most things. He's got 80% involvement in everything that Bournemouth have done this season. The trouble is they just haven't done much. Now, their XG for the next 5 game weeks is actually better. Bournemouth's fixtures are turning a little bit. is just that bit. Again, I would just like to see a little bit more from Bournemouth. And I think if you look at Solanke against Calvert-Lewin, again, and then players like Lyle Foster and players like that, and you're only another 500,000 more, and you're at Julian Alvarez. You know what I mean? It doesn't really compete, does it? They don't really compete. It's a shame because I actually quite like Solanke. He's certainly the talisman for Bournemouth, but not this week. I don't think. I fancy Calvert-Lewin this week. I've got a funny feeling Everton might turn it round this week, oddly enough.
I don't know. I just see them as inconsistent. So like one game they'll turn it around, and then the next three they'll tank again.
The numbers are good. The numbers are good. The fact is they're just not, or they seem not to be. And of course, Pickford will concede again.
Well, that's the new Gandhi rule. Yeah. Pickford will concede again.
Pickford will concede, yeah.
But keep an eye on Doucouré. I think Doucouré is an underrated asset, and he's playing like this 10 or even support striker position at times. So
maybe if you're wildcarding in the international break and you've got the opportunity for a little punt, why not Calvert-Lewin? That might not be the worst idea this week.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Well, there are other options. I don't know if it's a 1 week punt. I don't know.
If he's wildcarding next week, I've no problem with it. I wouldn't do it long term because his leg's going to fall off. But I mean, if he's fit this week and it's against Bournemouth, then why not? Fair. Fixture difficulty quite likes it, and again, headed matchups is there, so there's something there for him, I think.
For sure.
Anyway, let's keep going. Fulham, Sheffield United, guaranteed to be last on match of the day, I think. Now, your NetXG actually likes Fulham. It's hardly surprising because it's Sheffield United. 1.78 against 1.23. My fixture difficulty, on the other hand, finds Fulham rather bang average. I think anyone who is making Sheffield United look good or look relatively good is probably not themselves. Sheffield United's attack only 0.2. The zonals represent the closest I've seen to a traffic light so far tonight, Gabe, with Fulham green left and right, and Sheffield United, red. And again, I think someone quite enjoyed this quip last week, so I'm going to use it again. If I was red colourblind, I wouldn't be able to predict. I wouldn't be able to quote what the numbers are on the shot goal predictors or shot and target goal predictors because they're virtually all bright red. So it doesn't really suggest an awful lot's going to happen this week in this game. What's your perspective?
So I know Colm's in the chat and he's a Fulham fan. So I'm glad he's here because I'm finally going to be a little bit nice to Fulham. And what I think the reason NetXG is so much higher than the FDR is because the zonals are baked in there. And look how those zonals are quite strong for Fulham, especially that 4.7 zonal on the left side. That's where Andres Pereira is playing. That's where all their creativity is coming from. So I think Andres Pereira gets a goal here, maybe even a double return. I really like him in this matchup quite a bit. Precisely because of that zonal and the way Fulham have been playing. So that's and you can see that zonal matchup. It's reflected in the creativity XG metric. It's the one that's kind of higher than the rest, the 1.99. It's because those zonals are big. That's like big chances in zonals, and it's baked in there. And so that's reflected right there. And then I mean Leno, as sure as Pickford is gonna keep a clean sheet, Leno's gonna ball out. He's been playing so well for so long. He would 100%. Like if I were on free hit Mariner, just off the top of my head, out of the blue here, Leno and Castagne double up for Fulham would be very interesting.
Yeah, I think I could see it. So I could probably see that. The only thing I would say about Leno is that I'm not sure how many saves he's going to actually have to make. I mean, although Sheffield United may look at this game as something that they can actually give it a go, and if they, of course, give it a go, it might not be big chances. It might be lots of like say lots of, should we say, small chances and poor quality chances and things like that. And of course, that's going to play right into Leno, particularly if they keep a clean sheet right. So yeah, I mean, and if not, then maybe some save points. But no, I sort of like see where you're coming from with it. I mean, I think you must be completely mad to double up on Fulham personally in defence. But I mean, look, McAtee can turn up and score, right? Because he's good. They are capable of scoring, to be fair.
Yeah.
Sheffield United. They're just also very capable of conceding.
I mean, as it stands now, I'm playing Archer. He's a starter for me. So
you just told me that you would double up on that.
I'm in a situation, that's why.
Oh dear. Okay, enough of that. We'll cover that later, shall we? Manchester United against Brentford, Gabe. Now, right, where do we start with this one?
It's last on match of the day. Can we start there?
Two bang average teams, quite frankly. One with a load of injuries, the other just shit. I'll let you decide which one's which. Manchester United 1.51 net XG against a bang average Brentford team, quite frankly. Flecken has been an unmitigated disaster for me. Unmitigated disaster. As has Mbumo, but there we go. His wheels fell off his Mbumobile. The fixture difficulty-wise still likes Manchester United. I mean, they do create things, Gabe. They're just not finishing them. By the looks of things, 2.6 FDR and 0.6 defence. Manchester United's this fixture difficulty is by no means bad, and in fact, again, you've got that traffic light showing quite clearly. We joke about free hit, but if you were free hitted any other week, you would double up on Manchester United attack. Any other week, looking at those numbers, if you didn't know, if you were stuck in a silo and you'd locked yourself away for the last 8 weeks and you just looked at this completely blind and just come in and looked at these numbers with no context whatsoever, 2.4 XG, 3.5 big chances, 7.5 shots on target, 11.7 shots in the box, 2.9 headed matchup. You've got shot goal predictors going mad as well. But then it's 10 fraud. Tell us about it.
Then it's 10 fraud indeed. I mean, these are two dysfunctional teams right now. Brentford have lost their entire creative left side, so they're figuring themselves out. And Manchester United have lost everything, I guess, all sense of reason and leadership,
and self-respect.
And self-respect. That's right. Here's Flecken. It's interesting, Flecken away. So Brentford have played 3 away matches this season. They've only conceded 1 big chance, non-penalty, in those 3 games, and they've only conceded
though.
That's
enough, I think.
And only
it feels like it,
and only 1.3 post shot XG in 3 matches. So it's is it like, so what it's fair to ask, like, what's happening there, right?
I'm at a loss with it. I really am.
He's been worse at home. At home his stats are terrible, but away they are a little bit better. And maybe it's because they've played more of that back 5 in away. I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. Fucking hasn't been worse than Onana. That's right. We're here talking about fucking Onana's like a new pit of hell every day. Poor guy, man. I actually feel for the guy.
I have to say, yeah, I tend to agree. But I mean, Flecken's been an unmitigated disaster for me. I mean, I'm looking at Manchester United's numbers here. People are selling players selling them like hotcakes. Rashford's likely to drop in prices soon. I mean, I look at these matchups. I look at these predictions. Fernandes is still pretty much top of all expected involvements for the next 5 game weeks. They've got 9.52 positive, 9.52 XG on a matchup in the next 5 game weeks compared to Burnley at 4.5 or something like that, and Spurs at 6. When you look at these XG matchups, the fixtures are not bad. They are just bad.
Yeah,
and it's like they just can't. Are they going to turn a corner, or are they just have they just shot the bolt, Gabe?
I honestly, I'm just in like a wait and see. I don't want to predict anything for them. I just know that none of these good stats matter for a shit team. A shit team. Well, and they're not a shit team. They're a team in crisis. Let's call them both of these teams are kind of like a little bit in crisis, and I don't think any good stats matter for them. Whatever XG, like whatever matchups they have, like just get good players on good teams. Remember the maxim: get good players on good teams. This is not a good team right now.
That's what you would have done. And I mean, when you started in the season, people doubled up on these. You know, people are now wildcarding frantically to get rid of them, and yet they're playing Brentford, who potentially are bad as well. You know what I mean? This is the sort of... I mean, I can't sell Rashford anyway. I'm going to have to play him. I don't really hold out much hope, but if I've got hope, perhaps this does give me it. If there is any hope whatsoever, then that would be it. But I heard a rumour he jumped in the car. He was already halfway home after 20 minutes after the final whistle went at the weekend. And I mean, it just doesn't... All's not well in Old Trafford, right? All's not well. And I think there's clearly a problem there. These numbers suggest it should be, certainly, it should be a Manchester United win and maybe some returns. But you know what? I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them right now.
No.
Haaland seems to be the only good thing. Bruno will continue to tick. Look, maybe with somebody up front who can finish, perhaps Fernandes is the better option right now. I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going. But before we jump into there, and I've not got the slide because it's in the wrong place, but the Football Content Awards I think they close on Sunday, right?
Yep.
So, yes, we'll put the slide up later on. But if you like what you're seeing, guys, then if you haven't voted, go and have a look for the Football Content Awards online. Find us and give us a vote for the best. That was the best in video and the best podcast. Even though I'm still shocked about this, Gabe. I don't understand how we can possibly make it onto a podcast. Because we're so visual. But anyway, apparently it's something to do with my laugh. But anyway, maybe I'll just bottle it up and sell it.
There you go. People need more of that.
Some evil laugh or something like that.
This is a good question from William. United have some defensive injuries on their left, so Mbomo can get something. I don't... Exactly, like if he's pinned back, will he be in the space to take advantage of that? And I think United's woes on the back line are kind of like being exposed everywhere, not just on that left hand side. Like Dalot will play the right hand side, but Dalot's not a good one-on-one 1v1 defender or anything like that. So but yeah, I guess if one side is more vulnerable, honestly, I think I prefer Wissa. I think that to Mbomo, that the only reason I prefer Mbomo is a potential pen, but he could be as a wing back in a 3-5-2.
Well, Val here is very positive. He's saying Manchester United easy win 4-1. Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, and Rasmus Haaland all to score. There we go, Gabe. I maybe want something that Val's on. Certainly a good dose of hope, I think we would say. Should we say that? But anyway, the Crystal Palace Nottingham Forest. Let's crack on with that one. So, all right, Crystal Palace at home, net XG 1.68, Forest only 1.07. Crystal Palace's attack, though, only 0.3 fixture difficulty, but really positive defence at 2.4. And I think that paints a bit of a story, really. They're very tight at the moment, Crystal Palace, so they seem very tight at the back. but not necessarily creating an awful lot. Although your net XG seems to suggest it maybe slightly different, but I don't know whether that's the fact that that's Forest, who are not so good away from home, or Palace good. Do you know what I mean? I can't quite work out here. I do feel that they're sort of like regressing back to their old selves of being a bit boring. You know what I mean?
Palace or Forest?
Palace.
Palace, and will they do that even more without Ibereza? Right, he's out. He'll be out for several weeks, 5 weeks or something like that. Yep. So without that attacking talisman, will Palace sit even deeper and play, even less proactive ball? And one thing I noticed about NetXG is NetXG doesn't really see many clean sheets this game week, and it's because like bad teams are playing bad teams and good teams are playing good teams. So other than like the maybe the Spurs Luton, but even Spurs' defense they've been pretty open. I'm looking at what's keeping Forest's net XG high, and it's the expected data. Let me see here really quick.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
just whilst you're looking at that, sorry, carry
on. So it's Awoni. The XG on target delta, so the goals minus the post shot XG is positive 3.8, which means he's away. So the Forest is overperforming their shots data by almost 4 goals.
Right.
And there's some of last season in this as well, but it's that overperformance. That's why I likes Forest.
Yeah, this paints a very worrying picture for Crystal Palace. If Eze is out, like you said, I've not updated that. I didn't see his injury. I missed that one maybe when I was looking at my numbers earlier on. But look if Eze was fully fit, look how much involvement is actually with him in that. And then you look further down, and then you're like, who's next? Jordan Ayew. Oh my God. Then Anderson, and then Edouard's injured as well. So although he's maybe not too far away from being fit again, but that is a big problem for Palace, I think, potentially. A big problem. What's this? Bad teams playing bad teams.
I always find a way to insult Fulham, even when I'm trying to be nice to them, and Combs a massive Fulham fan. He always calls me out for it.
How very dare you? Yeah. Don't be upsetting our haulers. Let's keep going. And this is an interesting one, Gabe. Because Brighton have just come off an absolute battering, right, away from home. Very, very different Brighton are at home compared to away. And I see people being really down on Brighton. I am quite the opposite this week. And I think NetXG is also that way. And the fixture difficulty is that way. Brighton's NetXG 2.24, one of the highest of the week, I think. I've not seen the overall numbers, but I think it's one of the highest of the week. But also Liverpool, 1.79. So it suggests that Brighton are, Liverpool are more than likely to score. This could be quite a high-scoring game. There's potential for it anyway. Fixture difficulty, Brighton is 3.4 and Liverpool's 1.7. So very much attack over defence. I would be playing every single Liverpool attacker and every single Brighton attacker I would have in my team. The problem is I don't have any. But looking at this, Brighton's left 4.8. There's Mitoma, 100%. Potentially up against Joe Gomez or someone like that, or Trent, if Trent's back. And you know what happens if Trent gets out of position. Mitoma's just going to go scooting straight through that. Brighton's XG 2.1, big chances 3.2, 11.9 shots in the box, 2.4 headers. Brighton's shot goal predictor's really favourable. Liverpool's is by no means red. This could be a good game, Gabe, and I've got a funny feeling there could be some hauls for Brighton players here.
So Black Screen in the chat disagrees with you, Mariner. Black Screen says Brighton are going to get smashed. They're all over the place right now. So
do you know what? It's not uncommon that Black Screen disagrees with me. And I'm all right with that. That's his perspective. My view is Liverpool away from home are nothing like they are at home. Remember what Salah's numbers are in comparison away from home to home. We mentioned that last week. Brighton, on the other hand, are a completely different beast at home compared to away right now. And do you honestly think a De Zerbi team is going to not react to that battering? I think he will have torn an absolute living crap out of them.
Well, Brighton have to play tomorrow. So Brighton got battered away.
True.
Then they have to go to, who do they play?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I think they have to go to Marseille, which is brutal to go to Marseille.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough game, right? That's a really difficult place to go and get a result.
And then they have to come back on Saturday. They got walloped. Then they go to Marseille. Then they have to come back on Saturday, right?
They were Liverpool playing.
So on the flip side, so Brighton are like under it. They could respond like that at home for sure, or they could just be like battered and bruised, and it could be a difficult one for them. Liverpool coming off of an emotional game, responding to the injustice of that game with this emphatic. I think Liverpool are going to come out breathing fire, and Brighton are going to have a hard time dealing with that kind of intensity, because they're going to be so tired because of Europe and all of that. I still like Mitoma. I like any player attacking Liverpool's right side. We'll say that for the rest of the season. So Mitoma's a fantastic pick, I think, in this one. But I mean, Darwin will start because he's the only one because he's healthy. So start Darwin, Diaz, Salah. If you can get to that triple up, I think that could be massive here against Brighton. And Brighton haven't kept a clean sheet all season. So
no, I'm not saying they're going to keep a clean sheet. Far from it. I didn't say that. I'm sure I didn't mention that. I'm sure I didn't predict that. No way. I think Mitoma is. I don't own him. He's probably the player who frightens me more out of anybody this weekend. Actually, he really frightens me this week. Oddly enough, we'll see how it goes. Liverpool play on Thursday night as well, of course, but they are at home.
They're home, and they'll likely they're in the Conference League, right?
Yeah, so they may rest players, right?
It'll be a heavily rotated.
Yeah, you make a good point. I mean, and you're making a good point. Let's see how it goes. I still think Brighton are a different beast at home compared to away, and I think that's a big step. If this was away, I wouldn't be talking them up at all. I'll be honest with you.
And you bring the psychology into it, the pride factor after getting thumped by Aston Villa, coming back home and wanting to reestablish kind of like their project.
They've also and they've also got an extremely good record against Liverpool at home. As well.
But this should be a great battle. But I think Liverpool. I think it's too much. You can't do that to a team.
No, and of course, PGMOL will feel sorry for Liverpool.
But last year, the injustice was against Brighton. Remember that game against Spurs where they took away 3 Brighton goals. So bad.
God. What a mess. Anyway, look, some there's some really differences. Seriously considering Salah cap. It's about ballroom jam. Colm, it's a case of who reacts best. Yeah, it is. Let's see how people do on Thursday night. Diaz will score a hat-trick, according to William. He's probably that pissed off, it wouldn't surprise me at all. He probably, if there's anyone who's absolutely livid, it'll be him, right? Come in, but there's a bit of put his South American attitude on, and here we go. Let's see. I still think that it could be an interesting game. How come it's always Spurs benefiting? All right. Anyway, let's take that one off. Let's keep going, shall we? Interesting debate, though, Gabe. I like it. That's a good one, because I think that's a real one, which could be a bit tricky to call, I think.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
This one is an interesting one as well. West Ham against Newcastle. Newcastle again with maybe an extra day's rest. Well, with an extra day's rest, no doubt. So West Ham playing on Thursday compared to Wednesday. Newcastle have got PSG tonight, haven't they? So that's going to be a big game for them. And they've got injury problems. They've got Botman injured now as well. They've got Callum Wilson, who's unfortunately doing Callum Wilson things. And they've got Anthony Gordon suspended this weekend, which is fine because I don't need to bring him until next week. Or in the middle of the international break, perhaps. But anyway, there's another story. On this one, Gabe, Newcastle's NetXG 2.04 down at London Stadium, West Ham's 1.63. Newcastle's fixture difficulty is favourable 2.6 against 0.1, but we all know why, right? It's all the Sheffield United game, right? This is all to do with that. So these are all false numbers, quite frankly. A lot of them are false numbers. And they're not that green, which tells me that maybe, even though these numbers have been quite clearly been affected by the Sheffield United fixture here, the zonals and everything doesn't really capture it much apart from through the middle for Newcastle, and it probably sees a bit of a headed. And it's not bad. Don't get me wrong. The matchups aren't bad. 2.3 big chances, but not necessarily that good either. This is an interesting one again. This could be a little banana skin for Newcastle. I've got a funny feeling.
I think this is a fascinating tactical matchup. Think of Tonali and Bruno G against Souček and Alvarez, and that midfield battle. I think it's going to be fascinating in this game. I don't know. I think I see it the same way you do. I don't see it as far apart as the stats. I see goals for both sides here. I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham, if from a set piece or Bowen or something like that. And I think Newcastle are going to continue building on what they've done. But it's going to be the way in which the midfielders are able to progress the ball that I think dictates this one. And when we talk about ball progression, when we think about that, the Newcastle center mids are just better at that particular skill than the West Ham ones. But what the West Ham center mids will do is they can win balls, and Souček has been getting forward a little bit. It's more in the easier matchups that he's had more space to run up in there. So it will be interesting. That central matchup for Newcastle is really enticing, though. And it's more for the center forward that's in behind those strong center mids that West Ham have.
I just saw that Isak had returned 3 in 3 immediately as I took him out, because again I
brought him in for all his blanks.
Sometimes this game just drives me insane. But anyway, there we go.
It's such a dumb game.
Bowen is flagged, by the way.
Everybody's flagged.
Yeah, he's flagged. Wow. So let's see what happens there. But yeah, he's flagged. I saw that earlier on.
Ankle.
Yeah, I've got a funny feeling about this one. I think it might, as I say, I've got a funny feeling that West Ham might get something. I think a headed matchup perhaps suggests they might as well. Voldemort finishing a James Ward-Prowse cross, perhaps. I'm not sure I can rely on my Kieran Trippier double return again, as I have had. I've just had 6 returns from him in 2 game weeks, and I'm still crap. So that just tells you it all. I even brought the Tin Man in. I even brought Dan Burn in, the Tin Man. That was the only good thing I've done all season, is call that Botman issue and brought Burn in. That's the only good thing I've done, I think, all season. Shows how bad I've been. Christ alive. It says it all when your most successful return is Dan Burn. Anyway, let's keep going. To the man who, quite frankly, is named after my team's named after him, Neto. Neto, that haul. He is absolutely. He's back to his best, Gabe, I think. This is the Black Country. It's almost a Black Country derby. I think you nearly call it the Black Country because Wolves are the Black Country. And of course, it's the West Midlands, whereas Aston Villa are the opposite side of Birmingham. So I'm not sure we could call it Black Country. But anyway, they're very close together. They're about 30 mile apart here. There is no love lost here. This will be blood and guts. I guarantee you. The Molyneux will be bouncing. Aston Villa have come off a brilliant result, a great form, but Wolves are by no means a pushover. Net XG 1.33 for Wolves, though, Aston Villa 1.57. Actually, fixture difficulty prefers Wolves. 1 over Aston Villa 0.2. It doesn't, everything else is pretty black and pretty bland. I play pretty red and bland and not very good, right? But I've got to be honest, this is a local derby. You can throw these stats out the window.
But
throw these out.
I think that's what the stats are telling us. Like it could go one way, it could go the other way. Like I think the stats are telling us it's a local derby because it's totally unpredictable. You know.
Yeah. But I mean, tell me. Let me ask you a question. You know, how can I possibly have a team called Neto that Hall and not own him? I can't bring him in this week, but would he return? What do you think about returns for him? You know, again, he's playing down that right. Is he? I mean, fixture zones are not very good for him really this week, are they? So, but do you see anything? Do you see anything for old Pedro Neto? He's very good value, and in fact, you know what? Anthony Gordon and Pedro Neto could be brilliant 4th and 5th midfielders if you wanted to try and get to. If you wanted to try and get to that group, that foursome, you know, the elusive foursome of Haaland, Salah, Son, and Trippier. You've got to take some sacrifices somewhere. Do you actually look at those two type of players to actually achieve it?
I think right now those might be among the top 5 best value picks in the game at the moment. I think Gordon's value is a little bit more sustainable than maybe Neto's because Neto's relies so much on individual brilliance, whereas Gordon is systemic. Like the team plays this way. He wins pens. He has this skill that wins pens, so that's repeatable. I mean, but Neto's just playing out of his skull right now, I think, and he's taking people on 1v1. It's just like a lot of power and a lot of pace. So I just wonder like how long that will go on. But over the past few weeks, and actually we've been highlighting it like every week, and it came from Lucian in one of the review shows that when he mentioned he's like Neto got moved to the left, and when he got moved to the left, his XA shot up. And then we started to highlight him in the shows, and then he got moved to the right, and then he was being moved around. And that kind of unpredictability, I think, is really working for Wolves. And so I think Neto will, like, you look at the zonals, I think Neto might just be placed at the best zonal matchup that Wolves have in any given week. I don't think he'll play in the middle, of course, but whichever side. So I do think he's a great pick. But I want to talk about like. I wanted to ask you about Watkins and Diaby, Mariner, because obviously Watkins scored a hat trick. Now their role Watkins' role seems interchangeable. Sometimes provider, sometimes goal scorer. Is it maybe when they're up against less deep blocks or teams that allow more space? Is it Watkins? But Diaby has returned against those teams as well. So I wonder if we could maybe bring up that expect the goal involvement chart you have.
Yeah, I will. It's a really interesting one, Watkins. Okay. This is super interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because he is, it's there. If you look at the next 5 weeks, it's Matty Cashew's top
for involvement. That's amazing.
But the reason is because he is. His expected is slightly over his actual, so he's the opposite way around. Watkins, you see, actual involvement is 56%, expected's only 25%, so it's 31% under basically expected against actual. So again, was this the fact that Watkins was just damn good? Or was he just damn lucky? I think there's an element of both actually there this week. There was a couple of fairly low, there was certainly a deflection, right? There's certainly one there, which you could probably on a normal day, you don't always get those right. So if we look at it like this, though, if you actually took that 0.31, I could probably just do it, actually. Let me see if it adjusts without it breaking.
Just while you do that,
it's not going to do it. I need to do it this way, so I need to change that to 56.
Let me just say while you're fixing those numbers, I did want to say that, I mean, Watkins got his hat trick and a couple of those plays that there was some luck involved, but also that said, I mean, I find that sometimes he's a little bit arrogant. Like, you can't go out, you can't go to Villa Park and start that central midfield. I'm sorry, names nobody's ever heard of, teenagers, like you guys are like Brighton, you're amazing, it's super fun to watch, really dangerous to play against, but you're not that good where you can play the teenagers at Villa Park. So we'll see. Hopefully he learns from that lesson. Sorry, go ahead.
But you'll see what I've just done. I've just adjusted the expected to the actual, and it's jumped Watkins up to 3.86 returns in the next 5. So if you think, Gabe, and this is, again, all about context and all about your feeling as to applying these numbers in a certain way. You've got a 1.5 bounce on those numbers if you think he's going to continue performing at the level, but with respect to his actual involvement of 56%. Now, with Diaby, again, I think he's flagged. I think it certainly was flagged. If he's not playing, we've always saying about Diaby being cannibalising Watkins to a certain extent. He certainly didn't. He certainly didn't last week, but he still got a couple of returns himself, didn't he, as well? So, I mean, look, they're just good. They're very good at home. I'm not sure they're nothing like as good away from home as they are at home. But this is a very interesting conundrum, because I've seen a lot of people trying to break their teams to get Watkins in. Now, the issue is this sustainable? He returned with a hat-trick, his second hat-trick of the season. The first one, was it in Gameweek 1? I think it might have been, right back at the start of the season. And I think since then, we've been looking at him, everyone's thinking he's just ticking over. Then, of course, he goes pop again. And now we're looking at him, everyone's busting their backsides to try and get him in. Whereas if you look at his actual expected involvement, actually, from the perspective of the team, it's only 25%.
This is not. This is his only hat trick this season, right?
I thought he's got 2 hat tricks. I thought he'd got another one. I'm sure I read he'd got another hat trick somewhere. Maybe not in the league, maybe in the cup. I don't know, but I think he was actually.
Maybe in the cup.
I think he was in the cup. But yeah, I mean, from that perspective, Gabe, I think what you're looking at it is that you can see people. Are people just chasing points by bringing Watkins in a sense? It's a very difficult one to judge, quite frankly. They have got 2 brilliant fixtures in game week 9 and 10. I tell you what, here's one for you. We're going to have to talk about this in a few minutes anyway when we get to Manchester City. But if I was to sell Erling Haaland, I would own Watkins, I would own Salah, and I would own Diaby. There we go. They're the players who I would bring in if I was selling Haaland.
Right. I own Haaland, and I own Salah, and I own Diaby. So the only difference would be Watkins for Haaland.
But do you own Trippier?
Thanks. I don't own Trippier.
That's the reason I've got the problem, right? Because I own Trippier, and Trippier's been great for me, but Trippier breaks that ability. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
It just breaks it. He is the breaker. He is the breaking point for the current budgets right now. I'm not saying I would sell Haaland, but if it's for the first time, I think there is a genuine discussion about it, and we can come on to that in a few minutes.
Patrick against Hibs.
Yes. Yeah. Well, anyone could play against us, like playing blind skill. But anyway, there's another story.
Obrigado, Warner Almeida. Obrigado. That's a Portuguese name, I believe. So.
Yeah, obrigado. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay, let's keep going. Arsenal against Manchester City. Surprise, surprise. Here we are. Saka is crocked. He's out. Martinelli is out as well. Trossard is fit again. Obviously, Saka's decided to give everybody else penalties, which pissed everybody off immensely last weekend. It
I
made
love that
made
so
my
much.
day because I'd sold him, so I was absolutely made my
Me
day on
too.
that. Again, I got away with that so much.
Got
But
away with
anyway,
a big mistake there.
let's have a look at this one. This is an interesting one again because Arsenal at the Emirates have been pretty good, but Manchester City away from home this season have been exceptionally good, particularly attack-wise. Um,
Hmm.
and this is mirrored by the numbers: 1.67 net XG for Manchester City, even at the Emirates, with Arsenal only 1.39. Fixture difficulty 1.8 for Manchester City against Arsenal's zero point 0.6. I think that tells you again just that Manchester City. I'm sure last year when Manchester City went down to Arsenal, they didn't have a positive fixture difficulty. I'm quite sure they didn't.
Hmm.
And if we look at this, the rest of it sees City's left 3.9, centre 4, but then it flips on its head and it goes back to Arsenal with respect to XG at 1.6 and big chances at 2.5, shots in the box at 9.5 and 2.7 headers. Your shot goal predictors likes the idea of goals in this game, Gib.
Hmm. And it's, I mean, the metrics are unanimous in seeing this game as quite even, right? So whereas Arsenal may have the advantage in big chances, shots in the box, and headed chances, right? City have the zonal advantage, and those and the shot predictors are almost identical across the board. Yeah, I see this as a draw with goals. I think makes a lot of sense. And then when we think of like, well, who do we like? Like, how is Manchester City going to come at Arsenal? I think they're going to play that very direct game, especially playing at the Emirates. I think though it's going to be like offense, defense, and training or something like that. They're going to bypass the midfield, long balls to Haaland, who's going to check to, and Alvarez running and beyond. And for that reason, I wouldn't hate if somebody were on, say somebody was thinking of going Haalandless. It's not going to be me, but just to entertain that idea, like we were doing earlier, keeping Alvarez could be an astute way to play it, especially in this fixture. If Haaland is going to be the one checking to on those long balls, and Alvarez is going to be running in behind, Alvarez could be more at the tip in this fixture. But again, this is another one, a rivalry, top of the table rivalry that's always going to be really difficult to call.
Yeah, it is, and also, Haaland does have decent record against teams who are, further up the league, generally speaking, doesn't he? I he generated next to nothing last week. I think it was something like 0.05 or something like that XG. It was pretty appalling. Away at Wolves. But that just shows maybe just how decent Wolves potentially are these days at home. I think Dawson gave him a bit of a pretty much just put him in his pocket, I think, by the looks of things, by all accounts. Obviously, this is going to be different, but I just want to come back to this Haaland sell, right? 14.1 million. He's damn expensive. He needs to be returning. And he is not at this moment in time hauling as much as potentially he should be. If you are in a position where you cannot get to both, let's say you're quite insistent on owning a Son of this world, and you've got Trippier, and you're looking at that, and you clearly want Salah for Everton and Luton coming up in game week 9 and 10, right? Is this the time to go away from him for a few weeks, knowing full well you're not going to captain him on 9 or 10? Because I won't. I would captain Salah against Everton for sure, 100%, and I would captain Salah against Luton, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the week to? Could you conceivably go away from him in the international break for a few weeks And by the time you get, game week 12, 13, something, come back, cover him with Alvarez, like I say. Perhaps you've got your double Villa with those really tasty fixtures, double Villa, double Liverpool. You've got options. I don't hate it. I am genuinely considering it, Gabe.
So what's the reason to keep Haaland? Why do we have Haaland in our team?
It's XO. It's the only thing. It's the fact that you're just scared shitless of just getting absolutely destroyed if everybody captains him. And it's nothing more than fear. And what did we say at the start of the season, in the pre-season, about playing without fear? Is it stupidity, or is it? And look, I'm saying this really genuinely here. I can't decide whether it's rank stupidity or it's just been or it's just been frightened.
So
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I don't think we all started the season with Haaland because of EO. I think we started the season with Haaland because we know he can score 4 goals in any game. Any game. And any game is a possible massive haul for him. Any single one, any fixture, even this Arsenal fixture. Right. And for me, that fact hasn't changed. So yes, do the fixtures get a little bit more difficult for him? Aside from Arsenal, I would say no. It's the same shit.
Well, Manchester United's not tough, is it? Manchester United's not a tough fixture. That's definitely not. He scored hat-tricks before now against them, right? I mean, it is something worth considering. I'm not saying I'm going to do it. I'm just testing the water with you as a mate, and from a perspective of, I think genuinely now we need to have a debate. We are not like the other shows, are we? We don't go with the Joneses on that whole. We make our own mind up. But we have to look at it in context, right? And I think that's key here.
Yeah, but so I think in the argument to sell Haaland, what I'm hearing a lot is I'm not going to captain him, right? I'm going to captain somebody else. But that's not you don't have him to begin with because you're going to captain him all the time. You have him because of his potential massive hauls, whether you captain him or not. So
I don't think that matters, though, does it? Because everybody else is on him when he hauls. This is the problem. It's almost like you own him because you own him because you have to. Exactly, you own him because you have to own him. It's almost that you cannot not own him.
I don't agree with that, Marin. I don't think that's why. I don't think at the beginning of the season, none of us were saying, I'm going to put Haaland in my team because everybody else is doing it, because his EO is so high. That's not why I have Haaland in my team, at least. I have Haaland in my team because I know he can score a hat-trick any game week, including this one. And that fact isn't going to change whether, having Haaland actually makes it safer and better for me. Like, I can go Captain Salah in a game week because I still own Haaland. And so if he goes off, great. And if he doesn't, then I don't really lose much either. Going without Haaland, you have obviously then you lower your floor. Do you really increase your ceiling that much? I feel like it is a tough one. It is a tough one.
It's tough. I mean, look, I'll say this, right? Did we expect Haaland to be 90% owned?
Yes.
90 at 14 million.
Yes. Maybe that's a little low.
Well,
I expect him to be a little higher.
I think the problem is that he's priced to have other options at 11, 12 million, isn't he? Right, and there aren't any other options, and this is the other problem. There's Kane went and players like that, which means that De Bruyne's injured, so he's out for a long period of time. You've got this huge void, haven't you? Basically, you've got him and Salah, and then you write down the 9 million with Son, right? And that's basically where you are. I think 9.2 is the next price. So you're almost stuck in this horrible sort of soup limbo. Call it what you want of. Like you say, it's the ceiling. The ceiling's there, but everybody's got that ceiling. But it's the bottom which is the worry. It's the fact that if you don't own him and he's 197% owned and he goes and scores and he goes and scores 20 odd points, I'd be deleting the game.
So, when everybody says they want to captain Salah, and so therefore they don't need to own Haaland, right? That's game week 11. Imagine you're captaining Salah, you don't even own Haaland, and Haaland is home against Bournemouth.
Oh, no, he'd be back. I think he'd be back by 11. I think you'd have to. You can't not. I think I'm looking at, there's a window. There is a Salah window. It's 9 and 10. And I think if you double check that, and again, I'd have to look.
I mean,
Gabe,
I think you also
look
at
that
I can tell you now,
point.
I can tell you right now. In 9, Salah has the Merseyside derby at home in 9, and has Forest at home in 10.
Forest at home in 10, yeah.
Forest. Okay. Whereas Haaland has Brighton home. We know how their defense is.
Yeah, that
good
crap
matchup.
At the moment, right?
And then United away, which you could argue is a derby and could be tricky, but United are absolute garbage.
He's going to play in though. He's going to play in that game, isn't he? As well. I mean, you'd think. I mean, we'd have to think about it a bit more about whether there's any possible rotation risks as well here and there. It's an interesting look. We could debate this for ages. I wanted to have the chat though and the reason I wanted to have the chat is because when we look at the captaincy metric, and I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek here, is that he's struggling now.
It's interesting. Let's see. Like there are some comments in the chat here. Chat Sport says ownership. That's so like you said, the fear factor, Mariner.
Yeah.
Connor Hunt. Connor says that Haaland still has decent fixtures. It's just the EO as well. Chat Sport ownership, and he's in the best team to score goals. Can't argue with that. So it's interesting to see. I think we have a lot of people who are against selling Haaland here, and maybe because
I've no problem with it whatsoever.
There are some great. The conversation is really interesting, and there are some people, some good managers that are considering selling Haaland. I wouldn't say it's. Whoa, sorry. Emergency broadcast test.
Really? Has Donald Trump turned up?
Walking around.
Emergency broadcast. You just sold Haaland.
They heard we were talking about selling Haaland. That's right.
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, look, I'll say what it is, and I'll tell you. You know what? This is where we've had this discussion before about forcing it, haven't we? Is it worth just going in tiny little nibbles rather than trying to take a great big bite and then choking on it? And maybe when you're in the ranks that you're in, like I'm in right now, I'm thinking, Christ alive, I need to do something here because I just becalmed. I'm going nowhere. No matter what I do, I'm not gaining rank. I mean, it's almost like, have you anything to lose? But yes, you do. You could end up at 5 million, not 3. And I mean, this is the problem, right? Oh, I don't know anyway. But anyway, it's an interesting debate.
I do think that Haaland's fixture away at Arsenal this week is another reason to potentially consider the opportunity of a free hit.
Yeah. Oddly enough, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I agree with you on that, and I'll tell you why. Because I look at the free hit team that you'd pick, and it's actually, if you plugged it into something like Live FPL and actually saw how template it actually is, I think you'd find it's fairly template. Oddly enough, because people do own the Spurs assets, they do own Salah, they do own.
But not in combination.
Watkins.
Not together.
No, you're right.
That's the thing.
But
that's the key.
I know what you mean. I know. I was going to actually come on to that type of. It's. Oh my God. There we go. It's again.
I'm going to turn my phone off.
The fact is that don't do that. The world might be ending, man. But maybe the reason that you're actually serious. The emergency broadcast going off is because you got Darwin Núñez in your free hit draft.
That's what's happening. They found me. They're chasing me with an axe.
Oh my. Anyway, let's keep going, shall we? But no, what a great chat. I think it's a really great point. And I think, I think it's something that will keep coming up, I think, going forwards. But I mean, maybe it's just a bit of a, I don't know, post-international break itch. Should we call it that?
Yeah.
So here's the matchup summaries anyway. So at 1 hour 20, almost exactly on the dot, a bit slower this week than previous, but probably because we've been having some big debates. Brighton's matchup against Liverpool is the best this week. There we go. That saves something on fixture difficulty. Followed by Manchester United against Brentford and Newcastle actually away at West Ham. Some really strange ones. Everton against Bournemouth. Defensively wise, Crystal Palace against Nottingham Forest. Probably because they may have to have super tight defence because they're probably not going to score many, so they're going to have to keep a clean sheet to get something. I've got a funny feeling. Net XG, you've got Brighton top, Newcastle second, Spurs third. Net XG against Liverpool, our worst, 2.2. But who are best? Let's look at who's best here. Crystal Palace, like we said, so it's going to back it up. Now, on a zonals, you look for the greens. Brighton left and centre, Fulham left. You mentioned Gabe. Luton left against Spurs. God knows who that is. But look at this giant stripe of green across the matchups for Manchester United. Every now and again, our fixture difficulties, our metrics, I think, probably have drank one too many glasses of wine this week. I've got a funny feeling because they still like Manchester United. But anyway, there we go. 1 hour 20 for that. The next 5 matchups, on the other hand, are very now strong for Liverpool. And look at Manchester City, Gabe. And this is again why I'm making the point. Liverpool's fixture difficulty is double that of Manchester City in the next 5 game weeks. Double. You don't see that very often. You don't see that very often. If there's ever a time to sell him, it's now, is the point I'm getting at. You know what I mean? If you're looking at the numbers, if there's ever a time to do it, it's right now. Who else did they like, though? Manchester United, God knows why. Newcastle, Brighton, Aston Villa now at 12.2. First time we've seen Villa right up there this year. Or getting up there, so there we go. Defensively wise, Newcastle, double Newcastle defence, I think is bordering essential. The problem is, Gabe, is they've got injuries. And are you trusting them as much, given the fact that Botman is missing? You've got Lascelles playing, for crying out loud. They kept a clean sheet against Burnley. Yeah, they kept a clean sheet against Burnley. Yeah, but how long is he going to be there for? A month? Is that enough? Maybe it is. We brought Gusto in for a month, didn't we?
They're saying that Botman could be back after the international break. Well, Howe said he definitely won't be back until after the international break. So,
okay. As for the other matchups, Brighton left and centre, Manchester United right the way across, Arsenal right, but that was with Saka. So that's going to change, obviously. Look at the green stripes for Brighton, for Manchester United, for Newcastle and Liverpool. And in fact, if you look at shots in the box, Brighton and Manchester United 54, Liverpool 52, Crystal Palace 51. I think this must be as drunk as a skunk. I don't know what's going on anymore. But anyway, that's that. And you've been seeing this all the way along. And there's the example of Watkins, and I've just showed it there for you. If you were to take Watkins and change his involvement, he would jump right up there. Interestingly, Gabe, there is one defender on that screen, and it's Matty Cash. One defender on that list. But the top people with the most involvement, according to this prediction way of doing it, is Fernandes, Haaland, Salah. Eze's obviously injured, he drops away. Rashford and Mbeumo, 2 big sells right now. Their numbers are still suggesting their involvement, goodness knows how, but their involvement is supposedly still there. Solanke, obviously, from the perspective of being a talisman for a team, basically with, well, should we say, a bit blunt, to say the least, but a Talisman. Then you've got players like Maddison, Jackson, Son, Mitoma, and Pedro Neto. Look, probably the cheapest midfielder asset there, I think, pretty
Enzo.
much. And then Enzo a bit late, further down. But look, he's overperforming at 0.27, Gabe.
Yeah.
He'll go the other way.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So this is how you've got to. I'm going to keep looking at this. I'm going to keep working at this. But I am going to start showing this now because I think it's worthwhile 2 minutes discussion every week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. Football Content Awards. Let's do that right now before we dive into the metrics, because I'm sure it's there next, unless I've deleted it for some reason. If not, I'll just put the Excel up on the screen. But yeah, the Football Content Awards. Football Content Awards / voting. Find Net That Hall if you would really like to vote for us on the podcast and also on the video. Editorial. I'll tell you what, I'm going to call it editorial. All about FPL. Our mate Surya. Go and see all about. Vote for Surya on the editorial. But yeah, Nima is still red flagged, but he is working very, very hard in order to be able to achieve a trip to Liverpool to support and to celebrate everybody else's victories, which is what he does because he's the John Terry of FPL. So. We love you, really, Nima. Get well soon, my friend. Yes.
We don't love John Terry, though.
Right. Captaincy, and I'm going to dive in without the tune this time. Let's just go for it. Yeah. There we go. It's Mitoma, Gabe.
Wow.
It's Mitoma.
It's Mitoma.
It's Mitoma.
That's it. I'm free hitting.
His hauls are high, 94. His returns are okay. The fixture difficulty and net XG match virtually identically with respect to the percentiles. That is, it clearly aligns. It likes the fixture. So if you believe these, you not only believe in fixture difficulty, you also believe in net XG. You look at his zonal involvements are very good. His big chances aren't bad. And he just edges Son. Just. And if you look at Son is probably his past record. Hauls, returns, and points. Fixture difficulty, on the other hand, for Spurs is down a bit. And I think this is where we've got that slight niggle. And again, I've left the injury in the corner. The dog's in the background, I see. I've left the injury thing in from Premier Injuries with Ben Dinnery's system. I go on. I always I look through his website. It's a great website, by the way. I recommend that to anybody. And I put down whether there's what they rate the injuries are. And of course, Son is 100% at this moment, but there is a rumour, like we said, that he's injured as well. Haaland third, Salah fourth, Maddison fifth. Maddison is an option, I think. If you don't trust Son, Maddison is an option. Salah is probably an option against Brighton, against the leaky Brighton defence. And of course, Haaland is an option against Arsenal. I would love to see a captaincy poll this week. I can put the captaincy metric on if anybody wants to play with anything and tell us if anybody wants anything adjusting, or if you want anything adjusting, Gabe, I can try it. Let me put it on the screen now for you. Is there anything you want me to adjust this week?
I'm wondering if Maddison, like with Son's potential injury, does Maddison's involvement increase?
Maddison's involvement, so big chances in. So what? So his big chances involvement would go up. Oh, would he still do that? He's still going to be the creator, isn't he? I don't think it'll make much difference. Tiny bit. No, it doesn't make much difference. Okay. So I think he's probably at the top end of where he should be, unless he's been unlucky with respect to his returns or something. Has he been unlucky with his return? I feel like he's been unlucky because I own him. But that's just me. That's me being unlucky. I think not the fact it's Maddison being unlucky. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we could argue that the fixture difficulty might be a little bit skewy for Luton right now. If we were to take that up to a higher number, that pushes Maddison, in fact, pushes Spurs probably right up there.
Right.
So I think it's difficult because Luton is quite a small amount of data, but I mean, I have to say, Luton are by no means the worst defensive team at home this season. By no means the worst. So quite interesting. So yeah,
that would be Sheffield United.
Yeah, it would. Well, yeah, at home. Yeah, I mean, what I would say, well, I'll say this: I have not owned Mitoma all season.
Neither I
don't want to waste a transfer this week. But if I had an injury, he'd be the player I'd bring in if it was a midfielder. Definitely. And you know what? I'd probably stick the armband on him as well. There we go.
You would you really?
Yeah, I think I would. I really liked. I liked him. I liked him. I thought he's. I had a funny feeling about it. You know me. I'm a bit down on Liverpool away from home anyway. I've been like that for long enough, and I did like him. And I thought, hang on a minute, if everything lines up. And he was fairly high, but then when we put the last week's date or the data in and all the involvement and everything, and then look at it from the perspective as at home, up he came.
So and I don't mind bringing Mitoma in. I think Nipachan Utop in the chat said Eza to Mitoma looks good. I don't mind bringing Mitoma in a little bit early. They Brighton play Manchester City away next week. But even in that fixture, Mitoma going 1v1 against the City's kind of like bigger defenders who are built more like center backs. Although Mitoma up against Kyle Walker might not be a great thing. Kyle Walker does have the speed to keep up with him. So if you can maybe work him into a rotation, you play somebody else next week. I really don't mind it because I do think I agree with you, man. I think the upside is there against Liverpool from Mitoma this week.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wouldn't make that transfer early. See what happens in the Conference League tomorrow first.
No, I totally agree. The reason Saka's minutes are right down is he's 25%
flagged,
25% fit, 25%. Probably out for some time by the looks of things. So, I mean, Nipachan in the chat and Val both asked me to adjust. He went up to about 76. If I put him up to 90 minutes even, he goes up to 80. He's still nowhere near captaincy material this week. No one's really captaincy material against Manchester City. Whether it's home or away, they're not captaincy material. They can keep a clean sheet on any given day. You've got to get the ball off them first. To score, haven't you? Yeah, I suppose that's the way I look at it. But no, he's flagged.
Haul, like if we think that Salah has a good chance to haul against Brighton, say that goes up, maybe not 100, but say it goes up to like 85 or 90.
All right. Well, I mean, it would probably go to 90. If he had one more haul, he'd be highest. He'd be 98, right? I'll tell you now. One more would be 98. Okay. It dropped to 87, so it'd go right up there. It's marginal. Okay. This is by no means
all marginal. Look how close they are.
This is not a slam dunk this week. I think you've got 3 or 4, maybe 5, even 6 options. I'll even go as far as Alvarez. There we go. I go as far as Alvarez. He's maybe just that little bit on the low side, probably because it's the big chance involvement for Alvarez. He tends to be returning from his free kicks, doesn't he, and things like that, right?
Yeah.
But interesting, again, an interesting one. So, so that's the captaincy. So it's Mitoma. I think I love that pick, actually, this week. It's a really, really good pick. I think it's a nice...
It's a fun one, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. So, okay, what questions have we got?
Okay, I'll start with Discord. And we do have a couple. Not too many this week on Discord. Thingamabob gets us started with, hello, chaps. If you end up taking questions this week's episode... Thoughts on a -4 of Estupiñán, Edouard, and Giles to Porro. Wait, what? Now I'm confused. Estupiñán to Porro, Edouard to Wissa or Beto to Solanke, and Giles to Branthwaite. These seem like really low ceiling moves.
there's nothing
3 low
really.
ceiling moves other than
I
Estupinian
wouldn't.
Porro. That's the only high ceiling move you're getting here.
But would you take
So
a Stupinian out against Liverpool this week? He's probably going to concede, but you know what? He can return this week, easy as pie.
he could. I'm not too bothered playing him. His other question is, or do I simply just wildcard now and get the heartbreak over with?
I mean, you could do a
he
Nima rage wildcard, which I think Nima did a rage wildcard on Saturday night.
Yeah, he did.
By all accounts, yeah.
So given, I'm gonna recommend that Thingamabob actually do wildcard. He has Rashford, Bruno, Gw8, Giles, Edward, Botman, wildcard, Pickford. So I would say just wildcard that thing. The next question here is Sebastian Kuh.
There must be something more interesting to take a -4 than that. That's the way I look at it. If you're going to take a -4, at least make it lively.
Yeah, right. Like I don't know, like Rashford and Gw8 to like Mitoma and Son or something like that. Like that's I'd be looking for moves like that. But Sebastian Kuh comes in, right?
I tend to agree with you. I think if you're going to take a hit with players with a ceiling where you think you're going to get some big returns on it, right?
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah, totally agree. Sebastian Kuh says 3.1 million in the bank. Should I sell Mitoma to Son to triple up on Spurs? No. Easy enough. He currently owns Matters and Udogi and has Diaby and Gordon as his other midfielders. Sell Diaby. He's flagged. You can buy him back if you want. No, but he wouldn't be able to. Yeah. You could probably still get to Son by selling Diaby, but Son is also flagged, so that'll be a risk as well.
Is he flagged though? Is he flagged? I don't think he's flagged. He's just not been seen in training, and then there's rumours flying around. So I mean, it could just be some bullshit as usual. But
his groin itches. He has an itch in the groin.
It's not always a problem, that. But anyway, there's another story.
That's another story for another time. That does it for the questions on Discord. Do we have questions here? I know we have 31 people in the chat. Smash that like while you're here, and we'll get to your questions momentarily. I don't know if we've starred all of them. Have we?
No, I don't think we have. No, I think we'd have to quickly whiz through them. So, but anyway, who cares? It's fine. Let's just let's start with the question. I'll tell you what. I'll start with the questions, and that whilst you're tagging anymore. So, look, let's start with K7. So he's saying, is there a set midfield until game week 13? I don't think there's ever such thing as a set midfield. I tell you what I would do though is that I think there are certain assets that are, providing they stay fit, are borderline. Essential is a difficult word, but very, very appealing right now. I think Salah is very obvious for me, simply because I think captaincy material for 9 and 10, I think, is pretty much nailed on. I'm sure he'll top the metric in 9 and 10. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. I think Son and Maddison potentially are one of them. Now, you could maybe go with one of those two, Gabe, I think, because I'm not 100% sure of those fixtures, but I'm trying to play the game and going and hoping for the best that they carry on playing in the way they are. And then I think you've got players like Diaby or who else would I probably pick in there? I think that's about as far as you get. I don't know who else you'd probably think. I think Diaby could be quite important. But then that fifth midfielder, I think, is a very interesting one. Do you go for a Neto or a Gordon? Gordon's an interesting shout at that
He's
price.
a great pick. I love the Gordon pick. I'm really happy to own him. I got him last week, and knowing that he'd probably be suspended for this game week, and he is. Yeah. Here's my ideal 5. This is the way if I were on Wildcard, this is the way I would probably go. Son, Salah, Maddison, Mitoma, and Diaz.
Diaz.
And until 13, and then that Diaz pick could Diaby and Gordon would compete for that. But I just really like I really like what I've seen from Diaz this season, and with likely assured guaranteed starts for a little while, I think there's some upside there. So I would go quite heavy on the midfield.
I like that pick, and the reason I like it is because Gakpo possibly injured. If he's injured for any length of time, I think that removes Diaz's possibly minutes, maybe perhaps helps with respect to minutes, I think. What do you think? I mean, obviously Jota's suspended, but only for one game. He only picked so he'll just come back in for sure. But Darwin, I'm not so sure about with Liverpool because I still can't work out whether he's nailed or not.
On Wildcard, I think Darwin's going to be, I think he's going to bang this game week. And then he might not, then it's international break and he might not start that game. They come back and Jota will be back and then he has a traveling, and so good on free hit.
Yeah. Don't free it. God,
I'm gonna do it.
Don't.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do it.
You're bloody mental. Anyway, you remember that bloody emergency alert's just gone off because you just free hitted. Is that it? K7. I don't want to fall into a Watkins trap. Could we all discuss him? Well, we have already done K7. Go back into we'll timestamp it. Go and find the Aston Villa chat earlier on. And we spoke about Watkins at length, didn't we? FPL California, thank you very much. We've got a super chat, $1.99. Thank you so much. Liverpool have been very good away this season. They have, but Salah has not. His numbers have not been anywhere near as good. Significantly down, I think 5 times lower. We saw last week, Gabe, on XG, home and away. About 5 times, I think it was, wasn't it? And of course, Liverpool, yes, they keep winning, but they keep conceding too. So I did see somebody just talking about Liverpool. I saw somebody talking about bringing Trent in on a wild card. I think they must have too much money.
I think they must have too little brain. That's insane. You're going to bring Trent in against Brighton, away to Brighton? What?
No. Who takes penalties for Everton? Question. Who is it? It could be.
I would guess Calvert-Lewin.
It could be.
But I don't really know.
Unless, and there's a question here, McNeil. I'm not quite sure what that means. Is McNeil an option for Everton?
McNeil, yes, because of the headed matchup. His services to Calvert-Lewin. Remember that's one.
I mean,
way.
He was.
Oh, and set pieces.
Pre-season, we talked him up, didn't we? We did talk him up because we were talking about. He was quite talismanic towards the back end of last season with respect to Everton, wasn't he? When they were scrapping for survival, he was involved in an awful lot, was McNeil, to be fair. Obviously, he's been injured this year, and he's only really just coming in, he's only really just getting more minutes now. I think he's more of a watch right now. I don't think I'd be investing in anybody for Everton, quite frankly.
No.
Calvert-Lewin maybe as gun to head, if I was wildcarding over the international break and I wanted to have a bit of fun, there is a far worse punt than Calvert-Lewin this week. He may get injured at half-time and go off. That's your fear. But equally, I don't hate it. Okay, any others? Or is that it? Maybe very quiet tonight. Maybe everyone's just happy to go and watch the football, perhaps.
I put some... Are you checking the starred ones there?
All right, okay. Here we go. So we're here now. Without Rodri, Foden plays deep, Gabe? What do you think? Is he back?
No, I don't think so.
Sure?
No, I don't think Rodri's back.
Is
he?
It?
No, it was a 3 match. Yeah, three
was
for
it
violent
3?
conduct.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't think Foden plays. Go ahead.
Sorry. Did he miss? There was a cup game as well, though, wasn't there? Does the cup game count as suspension?
I don't think so. I think it's just league games. But I don't think Foden goes to play that position. I think they shore it up with Nunez and Kovacic, unless they throw a defender in there. just to shore up those central areas. But I don't think that Foden is the defensive response to Rodri's red card.
No, he is still out. He's out till the 21st.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's out till the 21st. Botman and Saka to Porro and Maddison for me. Colm's saying, yeah, well, yeah. Porro's fit, and of course Perisic is out now as well, so he's out for long term. Yeah. Sessegnon's out, so yeah. No, I don't mind that.
Porro's nailed. So yeah, those are great.
The only thing I would say is you don't own a doggy as well. You don't want to. You don't want two defence. You don't want two of them. I still don't. I've got a doggy, but I've got him for attacking returns, not for defensive ones.
I think that's fair. I wouldn't double up on Spurs defense for the long term.
Fair enough. And here's one for ChatSpot. I'm interested in a free hit this weekend. It hardly ever pays off for myself. Is it worth it? Right, Gabe, you're going to say yes, and I'm going to say no. Yeah. What I would suggest you do, ChatSpot, is create your team, your free hit team. Just don't think of it. Create your team and go and plug it into 2 or 3 prediction programs and see how many points it predicts to throw up. If it throws up something that you actually think it's going to seriously, I mean, I think you have to almost think. I know you've got an element of gut feel to this, Gabe. I know you're going to come from. I'm going to come in from a statistical side of things. My concern is here. I don't think the free hit team that you will create is going to be too far different to many other people's teams. And therefore, even though, like you said, Gabe, if you get those elusive double returns or joint returns or combined returns, it will pay off. You've still got to get those. Right? You've got to get a return, and then it's got to be a combination. I can't even get a return, let alone a combination of returns. So I feel there's better options. Last week was a far better option to free hit than this week.
I don't agree. I don't agree at all. I think this is the better week to free hit because of the way the fixtures work out. Even like people own a lot of City and Arsenal assets. Some people still own United assets, and they're all just shit. And nobody has triple Liverpool attack. No, I mean nobody has triple Liverpool attack. The double Spurs attack. Add Mitoma to that combination. I think there's real upside for very few teams this game week, and that's why it's a good free hit game week, is because those very few teams we can load up on them, whereas others just have a sprinkling of them. But like you said, it still has to work out that way.
It still has to work. Well, I mean, it has to anyway, doesn't it? But, I mean, look, I'd say this. I mean, look, if you were playing the numbers rather than your brain, you'd double up on Manchester United when everybody's selling them. You double up on those, right? You know what I mean? You could argue that you're selling them, but if you played the numbers, you looked at the matchup this week, you would argue with Brentford being in the mess they're in.
No, you're not going to sell your assets to bring in assets from a bad team. What?
Well, free hitting, right? You're free hitting.
Yeah, but you want to free hit good players from good teams, not bad players from bad teams.
I look at this the slightly different way. I mean, look, I personally think, and this is the other thing, and I know we spoke about this briefly before we came on air, but I'll throw this out, right? Just very quickly in the chat, guys. How many City or Arsenal assets do you own right now? I'm going to guess that it's 3 max, no more. One of which is Haaland, who everybody owns. So that's 2. And therefore, I actually don't think, because people are probably going to sell Saka because he's injured anyway. Martinelli was a previous option. He's gone. We had all this Gabriel and bloody Saliba bullshit, which went on pre-season. Everyone fell out with Arsenal's defence, so they've gone as well. I own Diaz, but I think I'm the poor soul who only owns Manchester City defence, or I feel like it right now. I'm not sure there's actually that much ownership for them these days. In a funny way, Gabe, I'm not sure there's one each. Colm's saying one each. I've got 2 Manchester City. No, I've got 3. Sorry, because I've got Diaz, but I think I'm the odd one out actually having a defender. I don't think many people are like me.
I think many people will have around 3 between 2 and 3, but these are starters, and you're totally right about the ownership in terms of like the defense. Like Saliba is the highest owned Arsenal defender at 26% ownership. So,
I mean, I'm not saying it's low. I can see what you're saying. I just feel they don't feel like in previous seasons where, I mean, if we've got 5 or 6 Manchester City or Arsenal assets, we've doubled or trebled up on them, and they're playing each other, and you've got attackers and defenders playing off against each other. I think it's a far more compelling argument. Do you know what I mean? Because you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul, aren't you, with respect to the, with the returns. So you're going to lose points and this. But yeah, I don't know. I don't quite see it, if I'm honest with you, mate.
It's the two, say you have 2 or 3, and then plus there are a bunch of flag players. Plus you might have United players. So these things add up, and you might. I don't want to get rid of Haaland, but I might do it for a week. I don't know. We'll see. Might be back here in a couple.
Well,
worst case, there's no show next week. So,
well, that emergency alert's just gone off. So if you have sold Haaland, that explains it. So there we go. But anyway, right. I think let's get out of here, Gabe. We're 1 hour 50. The football's about to start. I think we need to go and watch Newcastle against PSG. Unless Real Madrid are playing tonight. Or did they play last night?
No, they played today, I think.
Did they? Okay, right. Let me just move this forward. Right, okay. Minileague's still open, the free one anyway. HUP69D. And shout out to Samir Chandihok in Singapore, who is in 2nd place. I play golf with Samir. He's a mate of mine. I work with him. And yes, he's in 2nd place in our mini-league. We will start shouting out the mini-leagues, Gabe, in weeks to come. I think we should. I think we're getting to a point now where we're getting beyond the first few weeks. We will not be in that list, of course, because we're crap. But anyway, there we go. So shout out to Samir.
We beat Napoli yesterday, 3-2.
Yeah, he won't hear this because he says he's not watching any podcasts, and that's the reason why he's doing so well. I'll listen.
So say whatever you want.
That's what he said to me. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, right. Okay. Here's the haulers very quickly.
Do you want me to do this one this week?
Yeah, you do it. You do it this week. Yeah,
I'll do it for you. Super haulers: David Harrison, Zach, Harbor Boy, Daddybot, Greenback Golf, and FPL Robbie. Our haulers are Dread FPL, FPL Craig, Podna, Kevin Rose, FPL_Saffer, Connor Hunt, Donny FPL Oscar Arias, FPL Teacher. That's Lucian right there. Blonde, Escotters M, Tom Gorsuch, Tavindra Raj, Lindsay O, FPL Gw8, Akshay, Dom, Claire FPL, Catherine A, William DeJager, Harry Not Kane, Neil, Sebastian Koo, Benjamin Lockwood, FPL Robert Ducky, Niels Apples, Nick Khan, Big Mike, FPL Discomfort, Kieran, General Zod, the one I can never read.
Gladys Street Preachers.
Gladys Street Preachers, thank you.
The Everton fan, clearly.
Right. Yeah. Jack M, FPL Planner, that's Tien from the FPL SideNet podcast. We shouted them yesterday. Shout them again today. Tien's a great guy. Jamie Baker, Brett M, Mark Bond, and then Patreons, Elron, FPL California, Thingamabob, Rom Frost, and Mike Bork. Thank you very much. And thanks for the super chat. Cali love right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is that, Gabe. Thank you so much, my friend. Slightly longer, but I think probably deserved it this week because I think this Haaland, the No Haaland, and I think the Watkins discussions and things like that, I think they were well worth it and probably overdue, actually. So, very happy with that. Thank you so much, as always. I see the dog's asleep in the back, so it's probably how I'm feeling right now.
Yep. Cashew, that's his name.
Very nice.
He curls up and sleeps, and when he curls up, he looks like a cashew.
All right, okay. Is that why you call him it?
Okay.
Yeah. looks a bit woof. You get that? A bit like me. Anyway, gentlemen, ladies, gentlemen, thank you very much. We were net that haul. Hit like and subscribe. If you haven't voted for us, there's a very little chance to vote for us now on the Football Content Awards. Giant killing act at the ready. Let's hope for it, but let's just hope for some points this week. I think that's all I want really in life right now. All the best, everybody, and see you real soon. Take care.
Peace.
Bye-bye.